Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. It is Monday, December 4th, and George, got some news out there this morning.
Big news.
Dillon Gabriel has entered his name in the transfer portal. It seems like it was just yesterday or just a couple days ago, almost 2 years to the day since his announcement. That was on January 4th, 2021. But he makes the announcement today that he's going to enter the transfer portal. We were talking to Andy Staples about this right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page just last week about that. We'll get to that in a second. Just for you out there, the YouTube viewer, we do have a pretty good promo going for you all out there if you're wanting to get in on what is going to be a very active, very busy transfer portal season, as well as Oklahoma coming up, going to the Alamo Bowl to take on Arizona. $1, 2 months for SoonerScoop.com. Use promo code OU1. That is $1 for 2 months. Promo code OU1. Special YouTube exclusive for you all out there. And George, Oklahoma will play in the Alamo Bowl. We can get to that here in a little bit, but the big story of the day, Dillon Gabriel has entered his name in the transfer portal. It happened right about 8 a.m. this morning.
Yep.
So for a lot of people, I'm sure that were waking up on a Monday morning here in Oklahoma City, that I think that there was some surprise, and we'll get into this, but just kind of your overall impression of Dillon Gabriel making the announcement today.
You know, I think you and I talked about it, and hand up, I was wrong about this. I really thought this was it for Dillon Gabriel in terms of college football, but the more you think about it, and you talk about the landscape of college football, the money that could be made, the statistics that Dillon's been able to put up, it makes a lot of sense. And you look at it from a perspective of, you know, he can go somewhere else. I mean, he is the number one quarterback on the market, and I expect him to be that. I don't think there's anyone else that's going to go in the portal that's going to be better than Dillon Gabriel, has as much experience as Dillon Gabriel. So he's going to be wanted, and he's going to make quite a bit of money, probably more money than he would make, you know, being a 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick, which is probably where he would have fallen in the draft. Now, there's still that debate of, you know, when's the best time to go out. I mean, if he goes out and gets hurt next year, but you can't think like that. If you're Dillon, you have to think, you know, what's the best for my career in making money? And if somebody's offering you $2 million, which is a very real possibility.
It was the number that we talked to Andy Staples about, that Matt Rule had thrown out there last week.
I think it will definitely be around that number that he gets paid. And he'll go to, I would assume, a program that I would bet is probably competing for a college football playoff spot next year. You know, he's going to be surrounded by a lot of talent, and he's going to be the guy for a year. And you look at his statistics, Eddie, he's got a really good chance to finish as maybe the all-time leading passer in touchdowns. I know that that's definitely attainable. And then I think passing yards, he'd have to throw for, I think, 4,000, maybe 5,000 to get to that.
Case Keenum has a leg up on just about everybody there.
Yes, yeah. And so, but still, you're talking about finishing as one of the all-time leaders in college football. So, again, you look at it from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And I think from the Oklahoma perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Because we all know it's Jackson Arnold time.
It's his program. I mean, he is now the face of the program, Jackson.
And I think Dillon knew that going into the season. I think Oklahoma has voiced that many times. And that's not to say that they don't appreciate Dillon. I think you're going to look at this, and we're going to look back at Dillon. He's going to be one of the most pivotal transfers in recent history for Oklahoma in terms of when he came to the program, when he did, and in terms of the desperation Oklahoma had at that time, having a new coaching staff, all that. So I think it works out. And now you got Jackson, and we can get into it in a minute, but he's going to be the starter, I would assume, for the Alamo Bowl. You're going to get a head start on that.
And I would say, technically, Dillon Gabriel has not come out and said, I'm opting out of the bowl game.
Yeah.
But by him going in the transfer portal, I think that a lot of like minds can put two and two together and say that Jackson Arnold should be making his first career start with Seth Littrell on December 28th in San Antonio.
It would make the most sense, and I think that's maybe part of why Dillon made this announcement as early as he did, is to go ahead and hand the reins to Jackson, allow him to be that guy. I mean, there's no point in Dillon playing in this game. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
And as harsh as that may sound, I think Oklahoma, again, appreciates everything Dillon did for them, but you have to start looking toward the future, and that's why these bowl games, as much as people are like, you don't want to play Arizona in the Alamo Bowl, it means nothing. It means a lot because you're going to have a lot of young guys play, including your starting quarterback going into the SEC. you want him to go out there and play well and perform in a game, especially with a new offense and offensive coordinator and Seth Littrell. This is a big stepping stone. It's one game, but it's a big stepping stone for where they're headed next year.
All of a sudden, those 15 bowl practices become
huge,
massive for Jackson Arnold. And, you know, the situation at a quarterback, probably not the best when you're talking about depth going into the Alamo Bowl against Arizona. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that game here in the weeks coming up as we get ready to go down to San Antonio. Just in terms of numbers, you were talking about Jackson Arnold and Dillon Gabriel and what he's been able to do. He ends the season 7th all-time passing, 14,865 yards, 3660 for the year. He had the 30 touchdowns, obviously. And then you look at the number and, just the statistics. We went over it last week when he was named the unanimous first-team All-Big 12 selection. Led the Big 12 in passing offense, passing efficiency, passing touchdowns, passing yards, second in the Big 12 in completion percentage, as well as yards per attempt at 9.5. You're right, though. I mean, we talked to Andy about it. We talked about the fact that if he were to enter the transfer portal, he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks that had entered his name. And this is on the heels of Monday morning. Kyle McCord, the Ohio State starter, entered his name. Cam Ward has entered his name. He's been rumored to linked with a bunch of teams. Dante Moore, the former 5-star guy from UCLA, Riley Leonard, Grayson McCall, Tyler Van Dyke, Will Howard, Will Rogers, and DJ Ugalele.
That was good.
I'm so glad that I don't have to say that name.
But I would take Dillon over all those guys.
Yeah.
All of them. And I would even go as far as there's quarterbacks that I watched in championship weekend that I'm like, I would take Dillon over those guys. And it's just like,
I think Iowa would kill for somebody like it.
Yes, I mean,
now he's not going to Iowa, but you get the idea.
No, but I mean, it's just like I think that he's going to be so valuable to some team. And some of the teams that have been named already, Oregon, I think that's the first place to start.
There's two places that you begin when you go, okay, Dillon Gabriel is going to want to play in college next year in 2024. Two teams that come to mind. You said one in Oregon and the other being
Mississippi State.
Sure.
And I don't think he's going to go to Mississippi State. I feel like he could go somewhere better. To be completely blunt, and they're flipping a roster over, and it's a whole new coaching staff. And I know he's close with Jeff Lebby, but it just wouldn't make sense in terms of what he wants to accomplish in his last year.
As close as he is with Jeff Lebby, I think it's a kind of a little bit. It's probably they don't coincide together, but it is a little bit of the same idea, just in terms of the decision that Joe John Finley had to make, the decision that some of these Oklahoma coaches had to make in terms of stability within the program. And I know that 1 year doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's a little bit of a risk. We've talked about Dillon Gabriel and his draft stock versus can it get better? Has he reached his ceiling as a college quarterback? Yeah. And so I don't think that this decision is so much more so of I want to go and put more stuff on my resume as much as this flat out might just be a business decision. Welcome to college football in 2023 where you could probably make more money next year in Eugene.
Especially, look at what Oregon.
Or, people don't want to hear this. USC. Or Los Angeles.
Yeah, USC. I think that they are a real player in this. And that also just tells you how, I think, desperate Lincoln Riley is out there right now in terms of their quarterback situation, because he's also in on Will Howard, it sounds like, at Kansas State. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. But, just going back to his time here at OU, I hope OU fans appreciate what he meant to this program. And I know it was a bumpy ride the first year, but for him to respond the way that he did this year, I mean, honestly, Eddie, he should be in New York. If they open up the playbook in Lawrence and they end up winning that game, he should be in New York City this week for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And I'm not saying he should win, but he should have been in the conversation. And you think about what he did at the OU-Texas game, he will always be remembered for that drive. I know we were just playing the video there, but how many plays that was, 5-play drive to go beat Texas in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, he was fantastic. And you look at what he did this year, the 8-touchdown performance against West Virginia was spectacular. The UCF game beating his former team. I mean, he had so many great moments this year, and I think everybody appreciates his time. And again, his leadership. I think back of the moment, and this may seem small to some people, but the moment after they lost back-to-back games and he comes out and gives us 30 minutes of his time after practice to talk about the ups and downs of the season and just answer all the questions that are being thrown his way and his team's way. So I think Dillon deserves a lot of praise for what he did. And again, coming in at a time that Oklahoma absolutely needed somebody like him.
You mentioned it, and I think that you tweeted it out on Monday morning just in terms of Dillon Gabriel. Oklahoma certainly needed him, and I think that Dillon Gabriel, in a way, needed Oklahoma, and he put that out in his statement as well that he issued on Monday morning on Twitter. It just seems like at one point or at some point or the other, you get to a place where you go, I think I've done everything that I can here. And I've also talked to some people this morning that, him and Jackson are really good, obviously. They're really good friends off the field as well as, being teammates. And I think that there is a sense that he also knows that Oklahoma is ready to start the Jackson Arnold era kind of in earnest here as we move into the bowl season.
I think one of the interesting quotes he had in his statements was OU helped him hold him to a standard. And I think that that's really important to talk about his growth and maturation, because you're going to see that with Jackson Arnold and what it means to play at the University of Oklahoma at the quarterback position. I mean, you're reminded of it every single time you drive down Jenkins and Heisman Row and all of that. So I think that Jackson learning from Dillon this last year, I know I put out that quote from Jackson's dad about how much Dillon has helped Jackson this year in terms of, learning how to be the starter at Oklahoma, whether that's, the playbook or preparing each week or being a leader and growing into that role. Because Jackson is not the most vocal person. I don't think Dillon is always the most vocal person, but he grew into that these last couple years. And I think that that's going to be super valuable for Jackson. And those guys were really close in that quarterback room. So I think Dillon leaves his legacy as a guy that came in at the right time, but is also helping that next group for Brent Venables be ready for what's to come, and which is going to be a massive, massive first year in the SEC.
Todd Arnold told you, quote, Dillon's a heck of a leader, and it's been really good for Jackson to see. Jackson is very quiet. Jackson just kind of does things by example. Dillon's more vocal, and he commands the offense when he's out there. He commands people's attention when he's talking, and it's been good for Jackson to see his leadership and how he does things, because even if Jackson doesn't exactly emulate what Dillon does, it's been good for him to see how Dillon takes care of business, interacts with his teammates, and prepares as the starter. It's been great, end quote. I think it has been pretty positive. And, now you kind of start moving in motion as the Jackson Arnold era will begin. We expect on December 28th.
Yep.
I think that, going into this, particularly in this month of December, it's going to be really interesting to see not just how the teammates talk about Jackson, because I think that we've talked about that enough in terms of, especially in the front part of the season when they were running the Jackson Arnold package and things like that. We saw a little bit up in Provo when he had to fill in for Dillon Gabriel there in the second half. But you talk about expectation, you talk about, everybody thinking that this is going to be the next big-time Oklahoma quarterback and the shoes that he's going to have to fill. There's a lot of pressure there on Jackson Arnold, because to say that he's going to go win a couple Heisman trophies, win a couple SEC championships and a national championship, I think that there's a lot of people that feel confident that he can go do that, but he's going to have to obviously go out and prove it.
Look, he has a lot of talent. That's undeniable. You watch him throw the football, you watch him run. He's got some special ability that honestly even Dillon Gabriel doesn't have in terms of the way he throws the football. But what it comes down to is how does he handle the pressure, and not just as somebody that is the starter at Oklahoma, but I'm also interested when he gets pressure in the pocket. Like, what's he do? How does he handle decision making? And you saw some of that in the BYU game. I think that they were pretty conservative at times. But, when he did have to make a big play, he made it. You talk about the pass to Farouk on the third down. We'll always remember that. That was a great play, and he checked into that. So I think he's got all the tools to be a great player, but it's going to be fun to watch it kind of unfold, because until he gets really thrown into it, and the BYU is just a very small sample size, and even the Arizona game, on December 28th is a very small sample size, but seeing him and seeing how he handles that is going to be really interesting, because I do think he has all the tools to be that next great quarterback. It's going to come down to what does decision-making look like, what does his leadership skills look like, because whether you like it or not, at that position at this school, it's very valuable. You have to be somewhat of a leader, and you've seen that from guys in the past. And I'm not saying he needs to be Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray certainly wasn't in that sense. He was a very quiet guy.
Yeah.
But there is a certain swagger that you have to kind of hold yourself to, a certain confidence that you have to have in yourself to be the quarterback at Oklahoma. We saw Dillon kind of go through that these last 2 years. So it's going to be fun to see Jackson, who's only 19, kind of take the reins and step into that role.
You know, and I think that we talked about this when he was coming in. It might have even been way back a year ago around this time before signing day. But you look at the program that he played in high school, and I don't think that it means just a terribly, big amount. But the way that when you're the starting quarterback at Denton Guyer and you're competing for state championships in the state of Texas, it's elevated. Yeah. You kind of are comfortable with everybody looking at you. You're comfortable with, having to run down to on cue on the corner and somebody recognizing you. It helps, but it's a little bit of a different animal. I mean, Dillon Gabriel came from Central Florida where he was the guy, and it took him about a year to really start feeling comfortable and really starting to show the type of leadership that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think that I have this theory, Eddie, that Oklahoma should only recruit quarterbacks from the state of Texas for that exact reason, which is the fact that you have to play in. I mean, Texas high school football is just different than anywhere else. And if you can play in that environment and live up to those expectations, then you got a good chance at doing it at Oklahoma. And you've seen that whether it's Baker or Kyler or Jalen. I mean, all of those guys played Texas high school football. And I think that Jackson comes from that same, the same, what's the term I'm trying to look for?
Echelon?
Yes, echelon, whatever. He played at same class. He played in that same
division.
He played at that same level in the sense that he competed for state championships. He knows what it takes at a big program. And I think it's also important to know that he wanted to come to Oklahoma because he wanted to play for a big program. I mean, that was one of those things that everybody, when Jeff Lebby left, was, well, would Jackson Arnold fall? No, Jackson Arnold wants to play for a blue blood. He wants to be the guy at a school like Oklahoma where it has the history of the guys that it does. And he may not always vocalize it. Like I said, he's a quiet kid, and maybe he grows into that voice a little bit later. But he wants to be here. He wants to be great. And I think that that's the first step in all of this is understanding your role in that.
And then you have all the tools that, he's just God-given and the stuff that he's worked for. I think that just in the years that I've been doing this and all the Oklahoma quarterbacks that we've gone through, and I never saw Caleb in person in high school, but you get the impression that, I think he's one of the more talented quarterbacks that Oklahoma's brought in. I don't think that he's I don't know if he's like athlete-wise, if he's on that Kyler Murray level. I don't know if anybody is that's out there, but he does have a little bit of something about him, and
he's got some juice.
And when he's running away from some of these defenders that he did a year ago in high school, and then he does it a little bit. You've seen the speed that he's shown off, on the Austin Stogner block in the back that whatever, probably shouldn't have been called. You see the arm talent that is very obvious going on and winning the Elite 11 as a senior to be before his senior year at Denton Guyer. And then, obviously some of the throws that he's made, whether it be Nick Anderson in Tulsa in spot up duty, or even, a couple weeks ago out in Provo overthrowing Nick Anderson, the ball comes out of his hand a little bit differently.
And that's the thing is he's got the talent, like I said, and he's also going to have talent around him. I think that's a huge part of this is you look at the guys that are going to be coming back and who he's going to be throwing the ball to. You talk about Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson. I think Jalil Farouk will probably end up coming back. You've got a bunch of young receivers, Petaway, Brennan Thompson, that I think could be deep threats, guys that you talk about underthrows from Dillon. We had that conversation a lot. I don't think Jackson Arnold will be underthrowing a lot of people with the type of arm that he has. So it's going to be exciting to see. And they got to go out in the portal, get some more guys, I'm sure, on the offensive line. At running back, I think they feel pretty good with Gavin Sawchuk coming back. So he's going to have some guys around him that are going to allow him to have some success. The thing I'm more interested in, Eddie, is what does the offense look like? Obviously, with the new play caller and Seth Luttrell, do they keep things the same as it was with Jeff Lebby? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to see more of an air raid offense, so things could look differently. But how does Jackson maybe fit into what Seth Luttrell and Joe John Finley want to do?
It's going to be very intriguing because, and that's kind of the weird thing about going into this bowl season now is Seth Luttrell's your offensive coordinator. He's going to be the guy calling the plays on December 28th down in San Antonio against Arizona, which, I think that there's a lot of people that are obviously disappointed that Oklahoma didn't get into a New Year's Six bowl game. But at the same time, it's an Arizona team that is extremely they're kind of one of those upstart programs, and just as much as Oklahoma wants to, end the year on a high note and get a win going into the offseason, Arizona and Jedd Fisch could be the same could be said for them.
Really good team. I mean, they're coming off a 6-game win streak. They're a program with a lot of momentum. I don't expect them to have a ton of opt-outs. I don't expect them to have a ton of people in the portal either. So you're going to see a full Arizona team that wants to finish the season with a win. And I think that it also just got a lot more interesting for Oklahoma in terms of the future and wanting to see Jackson Arnold. They're gonna draw some things up to make sure Jackson Arnold has success in this game. They want him to have some confidence heading in the next year. So for the people out there that were like, disappointed with the bowl game, and sure, you want to go play in a New Year's Six. This is a really good matchup, and I think a really good situation to throw Jackson Arnold into and allow him to maybe have some success, and also go maybe possibly win a game and get 11 wins.
No doubt about it. To wrap this thing up with Dillon Gabriel, who enters his name into the NCAA transfer portal on Monday. He has 1 year left.
Yep.
Oregon? I think that
if I had to guess,
I would say
guess
they're
Oregon.
the leader right now, but we'll see. It makes a lot of sense to end up.
I mean,
there.
I even would throw out an Ohio State go after him? I don't really know what their situation is.
I think he's going to probably field calls from everyone, right?
Yeah, I mean,
see what the market's like.
I mean, Kyle McCord goes in the portal. I mean, I think Dillon would be a big upgrade over him. And so would Ohio State go after him? It sounds like Notre Dame's going to get Riley Leonard, right? So Notre Dame wouldn't go after him, but I think you're going to see multiple programs be interested in him. I mean, what's Florida State's situation? Is Jordan Travis back next year?
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just thinking of big programs. I think you can't rule anyone out at this point.
No doubt about it. Real quick for everybody out there, the Soonerscoop.com YouTube viewer, promo code OU1 for 2 months for $1 on Soonerscoop.com. And as we said at the top of this program, transfer portal is a buzzing out there. So promo code OU1 if you're interested in signing up for Soonerscoop.com. Just $1 for the next 2 months. That would lead us into the beginning of 2024. And we're going to come back. We're going to talk to Josh McQuestion this afternoon. We're going to do the recruiting report, wrapping up all the state championship stuff. But I think we're going to also talk about the transfer portal. Nate Anderson entered this morning as well on the offensive line. And as we were recording this, Savion Byrd has entered his name into the NCAA transfer portal as well. So a couple of Oklahoma linemen that will be leaving the program. But the news of the day here in Norman is Dillon Gabriel entering his name into the transfer portal. The Jackson Arnold era officially begins for Oklahoma as they will be headed out to the practice field, getting ready for the December 28th Alamo Bowl against Arizona. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll be right back here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube page. Plenty more to get into with the transfer portal as well as a weekend recruiting wrap-up. See you next time.